second annual meeting of Lake Region Electric Cooperative. I'm Charles Kvare. On behalf of the board, management, and employees, I want to thank you for joining us. At this time, we will play the Pledge of Allegiance recited by our employees.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now I would like to call on District 8 Director Sid Wistus to give the invocation.
Good evening. In Proverbs 16:3 it says, "Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and your plans will succeed." Let's pray. Our Father, we come before you this evening, thanking you for being our God, sending your Son into this world to be the supreme sacrifice for our sin. Thank you for the technology that allows us to have this virtual annual meeting of Lake Region Electric for our members. Lord, you know all about our life's issues and situations, individually and corporately. May you give us strength and endurance as we navigate through these trying and difficult times. May we be challenged to give our very best, always. May we be assured of your presence with us. We thank you for the freedom we do enjoy, for our military personnel that continue to defend our country, protect and keep them safe. We would pray for our leaders, the president, our governor, and others that we have elected to national and local government. May you guide and direct them. Give them wisdom, courage, and strength as they lead and manage our great country, and may we all strive to make this a better world. We thank you for the electric energy industry, especially for Lake Region Electric Co-op and each member we serve. May we serve in a business and an honorable way to meet each member's energy electric needs. Thank you for the employee group and the diligence they display keeping our lights on. We recognize the excellent leadership and the work that keeps Lake Region Electric Cooperative a successful utility. We thank each of them. May you keep them safe and healthy as well. Now we commit this time and this meeting to you and ask that you help us in directing our thoughts to the presentations and the business of this annual meeting. We do recognize the electric light of this utility helps us in our daily lives. May you, God our Father, help us in life. As the Bible says, you are the light of the world. We ask these things in the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Sid. As chairman of your board of directors, I call this business meeting to order. I want to mention that before we adjourn tonight's meeting, we will draw for prizes. You must be online at the conclusion of this meeting to claim your prize. Also, feel free to let us know where you are from by using the chat box on your screen. Now I'd like to invite Board Secretary Joyce Valley to join me at the other podium. Joyce?
As Secretary of the Board of Directors, I certify that the official notice of the annual meeting was mailed the week of May 4th, 2020 in the Cooperative's newsletter. The Cooperative's bylaws state that members present in person, represented by mail ballot or electronic ballot, constitute a quorum. We have received 50-plus mail-in and electronic ballots, and therefore a quorum has been established.
For today's meeting, I appoint Cynthia Brosowski, Executive Assistant, as the recording secretary. The agenda has been made available on our website. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as official order of this meeting? Is there a second? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Those opposed, the same sign. The motion carries. Joyce?
The annual meeting minutes have been made available on our website. I move the official 2019 annual meeting minutes be adopted as written.
Is there a second to this motion? All those in favor of this motion signified by saying aye. And those opposed, the same sign. This motion carries. At this time, I would like to introduce your Board of Directors. From District 1, Denny Thompson, Pelican Rapids. Denny also serves as the Great River Energy Director. District 2, Dennis Mathiasen from Frazee. Dennis is unable to be here this evening. District 3, Mike Brazel. District 4, Earl Rydell. Myself from District 5. Joyce from District 6. Tom Jennen, District 7. Tom is our Vice Chair. District 8, Sid Wistus from Bad Lake. Robert Shaw, District 9. Bob lives in Henning, and Bob is our Treasurer. The next order of business on our agenda is the election process. I want to introduce our attorney, Chad Felstul, who will further explain this process. As a result of our electronic voting process here, the number of member votes has increased 56%. Chad?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In June 2012, the membership approved the amended and restated Articles of Incorporation and bylaws that states, in the event there is only one candidate duly nominated for election to a director position, the single candidate nominated shall be deemed elected by acclamation as an unopposed candidate, and no voting shall be required for such uncontested director district election. Therefore, I would like to present to you the candidate elected by acclamation as an unopposed candidate, and no voting was required. Sid Wisness from District 8. Ladies and gentlemen, a contested election is being held in District 2 and District 5, and the candidates are, in District 2, Cecil Bud Hensel and Les Christensen. In District 5, the candidates are Patrick Myers and Ron Bratley. Because this year's annual meeting is being held virtually, all ballots were submitted by mail or by electronic transmission. Only those members in District 2 can vote for Mr. Hensel or Mr. Christensen. Only those members in District 5 can vote for Mr. Myers or Mr. Bratley. In years past, the ballots were submitted to the cooperative and counted by tellers who were members of the 9 districts of the cooperative. This year, the ballots were all submitted to survey and ballot systems who counted all the mailed-in ballots and the electronic ballots and will certify the results. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chad. We certainly are in unusual and unprecedented times. It's unfortunate that we cannot gather for the annual meeting in our usual way, particularly because interacting with member owners of Lake Region Electric is critically important to your board of directors. However, current circumstances dictate we must take a different approach, and I personally want to thank you for tuning into this YouTube virtual meeting. Operating during the COVID-19 pandemic points out a couple advantages of being a local cooperative. The cooperative business model means that we can be flexible. Your board of directors are elected by and from the cooperative membership. There aren't layers of bureaucracy to cut through when quick decisions are needed. Your cooperative can be nimble because of the close connections it has to our members and our communities. Along with flexibility, Lake Region is adaptable. As part of our ongoing safety precautions and training, we have planned for working in less than ideal conditions. Your cooperative employees take pride in being prepared for whatever may come their way. Therefore, we have been able to adapt to new restrictions while remaining focused on our members' needs in a productive, professional, and safe way. This YouTube format for this annual meeting is a great example of being flexible and adapting to changing conditions through the use of technology. Our cooperative has a history of being innovative in the use of technology for various applications. While Lake Region Cooperative has always been tied to the land by power lines and substations, the membership of the cooperative is rather unique. We have members from all 50 states. No doubt many have been drawn to this area because of our 1,000 lakes within our service territory that encompasses 3,200 square miles. We are a growing cooperative, building roughly 360 new electric services each year, most of which are near the lakes. We are also seeing summer cabins being converted into year-round homes. We now serve 27,000 members across 5,700 miles of power line. To ensure that Lake Region Cooperative provides these 27,000 member owners with the quality of service they expect and deserve, we do a considerable amount of planning. Each year, the directors and cooperative management team worked to identify our strategic imperatives and formulate approaches to achieving those identified goals. The process creates a framework for keeping our goals in focus and staying on track. Everything the cooperative pursues must fit within this framework. We found that this approach has worked well for us. For instance, we set a goal to increase the member equity to 40%. I am pleased to tell you that in 2019, we not only achieved this goal, but we are close to meeting the 45% member equity. During 2019, electric cooperatives made two key legislative gains. On the federal level, Congress passed the Rural Act. This bipartisan legislation protects electric cooperatives from losing their tax-exempt status should government grants for disaster relief be accepted for storm recovery. This was a victory for our nation's 900-plus electric cooperatives. In Minnesota, we were pleased with the legislature approving a 12-year property tax abatement for new natural gas distribution infrastructure built in rural areas. This will help us grow our natural gas business. I hope that I have conveyed to you how important our member owners are to the success of our cooperative. We want you to feel comfortable and confident as a cooperative member. Connections run deep when you're part of a cooperative. We will continue to work through the issues created by the pandemic, continuing to serve our members in the best of our ability. On behalf of your board of directors, I sincerely thank you for your patience and support as we navigate through these challenging times. Although current circumstances have kept us apart, please know that Lake Region Electric remains accessible by phone and email. If you have a question or concern, we want to hear from you. Let's stay connected. I am confident that we will get through this tough times because we strive to succeed. Now I would like to introduce our CEO, Tim Thompson, who will give his presentation. Tim?
Thank you, Charles. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for logging on and joining us for our virtual annual meeting. Well, who could have imagined just a few months ago that we would be dealing with a pandemic? As we saw the coronavirus spread across the globe and into our country, we implemented our response plan. The top priority in our response plan has been our employees, their families, and our member owners. We have had to make a lot of changes in order to make sure that we keep everybody safe while we continue to run the cooperative and to serve you, our member owners. Each morning, as our employees who need to come into the office to work, we do a temperature check prior to those employees coming into the building to make sure that no one has a fever. Our front office is temporarily closed. Our plan calls for reopening our front office on June 15th. On most days during this pandemic, because our employees are able to work remotely and from home, our employee parking lot has been pretty empty. But rest assured, your cooperative is open for business and we are here to serve you. Our customer service team is working both here at the office and at home. Please continue to call us, email us, chat with us so we can continue to serve you. And while our dispatch center on most days has been vacant and quiet, rest assured our dispatchers are working from their home, dispatching our crews, communicating with our field personnel across our service territory so we can continue to serve you. And our lineman's room is empty, but rest assured, our linemen are out there working on those power lines, making sure that electricity continues to flow to you safely and reliably. And of course, even in a pandemic, if there's a power outage at night, our linemen are on call. They're going to respond to that power outage like this one the other night. And even in a pandemic, they still put that belt on and those hooks on and climb that pole to restore your power if that's what it takes. No matter where you are at tonight, on the other side of this camera that I'm looking into, I hope you feel that your cooperative is as committed as it has ever been to serving you. I am so thankful to our board of directors and to all of our wonderful employees for the adaptability and the flexibility that they have demonstrated through this pandemic so we can keep everybody safe and continue to serve you, our member owners, and beat this virus. One of the things that is so important in our cooperative is that we have a high level of member engagement. One good example of member engagement at Lake Region is our annual member satisfaction survey. I am pleased to report that based on the 600 members who responded to our most recent survey, our overall member satisfaction continues to be on the rise. Over the last couple years, our overall member satisfaction has increased from an 8.6 to an 8.9 on a 10-point scale. The best part of that member survey are the actual comments that our members provide us, and they typically fall into three categories. One is members like to talk about our rates. So tonight, I'm going to talk a little bit about our rates and share the good news that our rate stability plan shows that our rates don't need to change. We've kept them stable for the last few years, and we can anticipate that that will continue. Nice to have those stable rates. The second thing members like to talk about is reliability. And I have some really good news I'm excited to share with you tonight, an update on some major infrastructure improvements going on in our service territory that's going to continue to improve the reliability across our service territory. And the third area that members give us good feedback on is I think they appreciate the fact that we're a very forward-thinking cooperative and bringing new products and services to the membership. Let's start with rates. Here is one of the quotes right out of our survey at the top of this screen. It says, "Thank you for having some of the lowest rates in Minnesota." What this chart shows is the cost of what you and I as members of Lake Region pay each month for 1,000 kilowatt hours. And when you look at Lake Region's cost for 1,000 kilowatt hours and you compare that to a peer group of 14 electric cooperatives across the state, what this chart shows is that Lake Region is in fact the second lowest out of that group of 14 electric cooperatives. In that same survey, this quote at the top of the screen we received as well. It says, rates seem excessive. Why so much higher than Fargo? The fundamental reason why rates will be a little more expensive in a rural area, the fundamental reason is there's so few number of customers in the rural area to share in the cost of that infrastructure. I hope these two pictures on this slide help explain that. On the left-hand side, that's a beautiful picture of a rural setting in Lake Region's, representing Lake Region's service territory. And when you drive down that road, what do you see as you drive? You see a lot of poles with a lot of wires stringing between those poles. You see a lot of expensive infrastructure. What you don't see is a lot of houses or a lot of customers. Compare that to the picture on the right-hand side of the screen representing a street in Fargo, a more urban area, and what do you see there? You see a lot of houses, a lot of customers. The houses are very close together and they're on both sides of the street. So you have a lot of customers in a relatively small area to share in that cost of that infrastructure. To demonstrate this point a little further, I'd like to use these two wires. This wire, pretend with me that this represents 1 mile of power line on the Lake Region Electric distribution system. We only have 5 customers per mile of power line. These colorful pieces of tape on this wire represent a customer. So imagine with only 5 customers per mile, you think about the cost of building this 1 mile of power line, the cost to operate the power line and maintain that power line, and we only have 5 customers to share in that cost. Now let's compare that to this second wire that I have, representing a mile of line from XL Energy, that is the power provider in the city of Fargo. For every 1 mile of power line that they have 34 customers per mile. So there's 34 pieces of this colorful tape on this mile of power line. So they have 34 customers. They can spread all that infrastructure over. So for Lake Region, with only 5 customers per mile, our monthly facility charge is $24, and that's set by your board of directors and designed to recover some of the cost of that infrastructure out there. On the XL side of the screen here, with 34 customers per mile, their monthly service charge is only $8. They simply have more customers to spread their cost over, and that is the fundamental difference why cost for electricity may be higher in a rural area. If you're curious as to how our $24 a month facility charge compares to other electric utilities across the state of Minnesota, you can see on this chart that the green bar represents Lake Region, and that's our $24 per month facility charge. The lower facility charge of the utilities to the left of Lake Region on this screen are the larger investor-owned utilities like XL Energy, municipal utilities that only serve cities. They don't serve any rural areas. The lowest facility charge being $8, and they go all the way up to the top, to the right-hand side of this chart, where facility charges can range from $45 to $47. And those, again, are rural electric cooperatives who don't have very many customers per mile of line. When we think about our rates, a lot of good news here. We've had stable rates for the last few years, and we see that stability continuing for Lake Region Electric. There's a couple really good reasons why we've been able to keep our rates stable. One is we've done a really good job of controlling our costs. We want to be good stewards of your dollars. What this chart shows is how the controllable costs at your cooperative compare to the controllable costs of the whole state average of all 44 electric cooperatives in Minnesota. That higher line on the graph, that represents the state average of controllable costs per member of all 44 electric cooperatives. You can see it trends upward each year. The lower line on the chart represents the controllable costs per member at Lake Region Electric. And you can see there's quite a bit of difference between the state average and Lake Region's controllable cost. In fact, the difference between that state average and Lake Region's cost is $158 per year. The other thing that's interesting about this chart is if you look at Lake Region at the end of 2019 and look at our costs, controllable costs per member, and draw a straight line back to the year 2004, our controllable costs at the end of 2019 is about the same as they were back in 2004. Great job, everybody, of controlling our costs. The second big reason in our rate stabilization plan, as far as why we've been able to keep our rates consistent for you, is because we've been able to generate new revenue streams for the cooperative. I like to keep it simple. For every $1 the new revenue we can bring in to the cooperative from a new source is one less dollar that your board of directors has to build into your electric rate. And our new residential standby generator program is a really good example of a new revenue stream. For those members who need a standby generator, this is a great program. It's a premium service to have your own standby generator, and if the power does go off, this generator will automatically come on and power your house through that outage. Really gives you peace of mind that if something happens, you're going to have electricity. We rolled this program out in 2017. The first year, we had 50 members buy a standby generator. We installed that for them. In 2018, we sold 89 units, and in 2019, 64 generators. When we sell these units, it creates a new revenue stream for the cooperative. In 2019 alone, this program created an additional $344,000 of revenue for your cooperative and a margin of $83,000. The second new revenue stream for your cooperative has been our new natural gas business. Well, let me ask you a question. Why would an electric cooperative want to start a new gas company? The short answer is we've seen natural gas expanding into our service territory. On this map, those red outlined areas, those three outlined areas in red, those represent areas where we've seen natural gas expanding in recent years. The community of Barnesville, for example, that smaller circle out to the left-hand side of the screen, they now have natural gas. Xcel Energy and Greater Minnesota Gas teamed up to bring natural gas to Barnesville for the first time. When that happens, if an electric consumer of Lake Region Electric is heating their home with electricity and they switch to natural gas, that has a negative impact on the cooperative, reduces our revenue, and puts upward pressure on our rates. The larger red circle in the upper middle part of this screen is the Pelican Lake area and the Cormorant Lake area. They too now have natural gas that was brought into that area by Greater Minnesota Gas. And then that third area also looks kind of like a dinosaur. The southern part of that project has also expanded in recent years down into the Battle Lake area. And again, when that happens, we can experience revenue erosion. So your board of directors took a look at this situation and said, maybe this is an opportunity for Lake Region to get into the natural gas business, grow our cooperative, and create a new revenue stream. And that's what we have done. The key to success of running this new natural gas company is our ability to leverage our existing capabilities. Well, we've never been in the natural gas business before we started this company. We've been in the electric utility business. We're a great electric utility. So we've got a lot of capabilities we could leverage into starting the new gas company. We've already got a headquarters building. We've got great employees. We've got great equipment. We've got great technology, and we can leverage all that into the natural gas business, and that's proven to be a good strategy and very successful for us. The blue areas on this map represent the areas where we have now brought in natural gas service to for the very first time. The areas of Deer Creek, the area of Parker's Prairie, and down to Miltona. We're expanding this summer around Lake Miltona. In the center part of their screen, that other blue area, the Dent area, we have now brought in natural gas for the first time to Dent, and also some of the lakes around Dent, and we have plans to expand in that area as well this summer. So we feel we have taken a threat to the cooperative and created an opportunity. Bringing natural gas infrastructure And natural gas service to these areas for the first time is all about improving the quality of life for people in our service territory. We are helping people save money on heating their homes. For an average household, we can save them $300 to $500 per year. Who couldn't use $300 to $500 per year? The three pictures on the right-hand side of the screen, we've also helped school systems reduce the cost of heating their buildings so they can take those energy dollars and redirect them into helping their educational programs for their students. Assisted living centers, same type of thing. And of course, our family farms. We've helped some of our family farms reduce their cost of drying their grain and heating their barns. It's all about improving quality of life, and that's what an electric cooperative is all about. I'm very pleased tonight to share with you that at the end of 2019, our second full year in the gas business, we had 634 natural gas customers. This created a margin or a profit for us, for the gas company in 2019 of $81,000. Again, just in the second full year of business. Plus, there was $184,000 of cost that was allocated off the electric cooperative into the gas company and recovered through the ratepayers of the gas company. As we leverage those capabilities of the electric cooperative, for example, that if an electric cooperative employee works in the natural gas company, those costs are allocated off the electric into the gas and recovered through the gas company. That creates positive rate benefits for all of our electric ratepayers. Well, how did the electric cooperative do in 2019 financially? This financial statement is a consolidated financial statement, meaning it's both the electric cooperative and the new natural gas company together. The top line there, the revenue line, $53 million. That is the highest revenue we've ever had in the history of the cooperative. I've already talked a little bit about the job we're doing controlling our expenses. So we had record revenue, holding the line on the costs when we can, and the total margin then was $5.6 million, the largest margin in the history of the cooperative. I also would like to take a moment to carve out the natural gas financial statement for you since it's so new. That's the second column of numbers on your screen, Lake Region Energy Services, which is our natural gas company. The top line there, revenue, you can see just shy of $1.5 million. The bottom line, though, that in that red box there, a margin of $81,000. I also want to point out again how the electric and the gas work together and complement one another. That red arrow in the middle of the screen, that $184,000, those are the costs that were allocated off the electric cooperative and into the natural gas company and recovered through natural gas rates. So if you take a look at that $81,000 margin plus the positive benefits of the $184,000 being allocated off the electric cooperative, that's a total positive impact of $266,000 for the year. Well, with that banner financial year, the financial condition of the cooperative continues to increase and strengthens our balance sheet. This chart shows the steady growth of the equity over the years. Currently, we have $60 million of equity on the balance sheet. That's a $37 million increase in equity since 2005. Charles talked a little bit about this, but our current equity percentage is 44.7%. Year to date, that means we have 44% of our total assets is equity. Well, with that great financial year, strong balance sheet, great equity position, your board of directors again made the decision last year to do a capital credit retirement of $1.6 million. That also was the largest capital credit retirement in the history of the cooperative. Great news for member owners. That now brings our capital credit rotation down to 18 years. And this year, it came to you in two parts. The first part was the Lake Region capital credit payout and retirement of $1,350,000. So if you were a member of Lake Region back in the year 1996 and 1997 or 2002, you would have received your portion of that $1.3 million. The second portion of this year, which is new, came from Great River Energy, our power supplier. They are a cooperative just like we are. They have now reached their financial goals, and they are starting to retire capital credits to Lake Region. And when they do that, Lake Region then passes that through to you, the member owners. So if you were a member of Lake Region back in the years 1976 through 1981, or 83 and 84, you would have received your portion of that GRE retirement of total of $318,000. This is now the 7th consecutive year that your board of directors has made the decision to retire over $1 million each year. In the history of the co-op, since the co-op began retiring capital credits back in 1958, we've now paid back over $28 million in capital credits. Shifting gears to reliability and back to the member satisfaction survey and an actual quote from a member that says, service has improved in the last 20 years. Power interruptions are less frequent. And that's certainly the case. And that's really what this chart shows is the average outage time per member over the years. In 2019, we had a very good year for reliability. Certainly that's always weather related to a certain extent. In 2019, we averaged 1.4 hours of outage time per member. We're working hard to continue to drive that down. Two big reasons why we've had a nice downward trend in outage times over the years. We continue to make major investments back into our distribution system for system improvements, and of course the ongoing maintenance of our tree clearing. Couple of highlights from 2019 to improve your reliability. We replaced 468 poles for a total of $852,000. We continue to do a lot of tree clearing. We spent $775,000 clearing those trees last year. We also did another system assessment to go out there and gauge how we're doing in terms of cutting those trees appropriately. And we learned that we need to spend more money on our tree clearing, so we upped our budget this year to over $1 million. We must stay ahead of the game on these trees. It really makes a difference on those outages. Another project is our cutouts program. Kind of proud of this one. We changed out all 7,432 cutouts. Those cutouts that you see on that pole in that red circle, they really function like a fuse. And over the years, what we were noticing is they were starting to fail, and they developed these hairline cracks that can be very problematic for us. They can cause an outage, which is bad, but it can also cause a safety concern for our linemen. So instead of waiting for those to fail one at a time, we did a wholesale change out, changed all 7,000 of them. That project is now complete, and that should reduce outages by about 62 outages per year. Now, these are the big projects that I'm excited to talk about tonight. The first one is an upgrade to the Lake Region distribution substation, which is called the Lake Eunice substation. So this is a distribution substation that's owned by Lake Region that serves our members. This upgrade is a $3 million project. The substation is located near Lake Eunice and near Pelican Lake. It will be completed in the year 2021. This is both a substation upgrade, so Lake Region will upgrade the substation, and Great River Energy is going to build a new transmission line to serve the new substation. So we're getting rid of an old transmission line, replacing it with a new transmission line, and the source of the new transmission line is going to be coming from a different location and a much more reliable source. So the 2,000 members that are served off Lake Eunice substation, when this project is completed, should see improved reliability. Yet another big project in our area that is now completed is the new Great River Energy transmission substation. This is one of those bigger substations that's owned by Great River Energy that serves our distribution substations, and then our distribution substations feed our members. This is a $6.8 million project. It's located near Perham. This substation feeds the Lake Region distribution substations of Frazee, Dora, Dent, and Perham. So our members that are served off of those 4 distribution substations are already seeing the benefits of this new transmission level substation. And the real big project that's just getting underway is Great River Energy is upgrading their transmission substation in the Frazee area. This is a $10.2 million project. And when this is completed, this will result in better reliability and increased voltage support for over 1/2 of Lake Region's distribution substations. And this is the last big upgrade they're doing in this project, is the upgrade to the Henning transmission substation. This is a $1.2 million project near Henning. This will result in an upgrade in terms of the reliability to the Lake Region substations of our Henning substation and our Stocker Lake substation. So with those 4 major projects, this slide summarizes that for you. This is our entire electric service territory, that 3,200 square miles. These 4 red dots on this slide are the locations of those 4 big projects that are underway. The green shaded areas on this slide represent the areas of our service territory and all the members that will see improved reliability because of these projects. These 4 projects total $21.2 million. 18,000 members of Lake Region Electric should see improved reliability because of these projects. That's about 65% of our overall membership. We cannot recall a time when there's been this much new investment made in such a short window of time into our system to improve our reliability, and we look forward to seeing how this does impact and improve our reliability. And that third area of feedback from our members really has to do with our forward-thinking philosophy at Lake Region, and I think our members are expressing appreciation for the new things that we're doing, whether that's our solar program, our standby generator program, or more recently, our wind-solar hybrid project. Here's a picture of the construction of that project last year with the big GE wind turbine being built and the solar farm being built. It's a wind and a solar project, so in one project we're harnessing the wind and the sun. This is also a big part of our rate stabilization program, as this is a lower cost source of electricity for us. The great thing about this project is we didn't have to invest in it. We didn't have to borrow any money for it. This is a local renewable energy project. It interconnects directly into the Lake Region distribution system that you already own, so there's no overhead costs for transmission or anything like that. Local energy being produced at a lower cost and being consumed by our members in the local area. Because this is GE technology, and this was the first of its kind type of wind solar hybrid project in the nation, GE came up and did a short video on the project, and we wanted to share that video clip with you tonight.
I've always felt that electricity is the lifeblood of our society. Nothing works without electricity.
We worked with the Lake Region Electric Co-op in rural Minnesota to design the hybrid electric solar and wind solution. This gave this very rural community a low-cost renewable energy solution.
This is the first true solar wind hybrid of its kind where we've utilized this technology that we developed with GE.
Hybrid renewables are scalable from cities and towns to small rural communities.
They're very complementary on how they work together. We can harness both the wind and the sun in one project and bring more renewable electricity to our members. With this renewable technology, there's no fuel, no emissions, no waste, no water, and it's by far and away cheaper energy. It not only allows us to bring in the renewable energy for our members, but it also actually saves us money on our overall power costs. So it's more renewables, less cost for our members, and that's what they're asking for.
We absolutely need a greener, cleaner system. Hybrid renewables are our first step in the path to reaching 100% renewable energy.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that little video there. This is a shot of the project taken from a drone. And now that the project has been up and running and producing renewable energy for us for a full year, we've calculated the annual savings for that first year of operation, and it has saved you, the members of Lake Region, $256,000 the first year. My closing thoughts for my presentation this evening take me back to the pandemic that we're dealing with, and I wanted to just share with you that during this pandemic, our Operation Roundup program, which is, I hope you know how that works. It's for those members who want to round up their electric bill each month to the next whole dollar. Those pennies from each customer go into an Operation Roundup fund, and those pennies become dollars. And a group of volunteer Lake Region Electric members are the trustees of that Operation Roundup Fund, and they decide where those dollars are donated to. And during the pandemic, they had a special meeting to donate an additional $7,700 to the 14 local food shelves in our territory. This is in addition to the money we've already donated to those food shelves. What a great program this Operation Roundup program is. Thank you to all the trustees that run the program, our staff that runs the program, and to you members who are participating in this Operation Roundup program. In closing, I just want to say what a privilege it is to serve you as your CEO. We've got a great team of people in this organization, and as I always say, if there's anything that we can do to add value to your membership in Lake Region, please don't hesitate to give us a call. We're here to serve you. Thank you very much.
Also, thank you for the strong leadership that you provide to our cooperative. I'd just like to share with our membership just a small example of that. You heard Tim talk about our natural gas. I touched briefly on the legislative activity in St. Paul that was very meaningful, helpful to our gas business, and that was the 12-year abatement of the taxes on our infrastructure. And Tim and his management team made several trips to St. Paul, testified before the hearings, and continued to follow that till it become reality. And the membership thanks you for that. At this time, we are going to go live with Mark Fagen from Great River Energy. Mark is going to give us an update on the evolving Great River Energy generation portfolio. Mark?
Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Tim, for the invitation to present at your annual meeting tonight. It's always a privilege and a humble experience to present at our member owners annual meeting. I'm Mark Fagen. I'm the Vice President of Corporate Member Services at Great River Energy. And just to provide you some facts on Great River Energy, Lake Region Electric Cooperative is one of 27 or one of 28 total cooperatives located across the state of Minnesota and a small portion of Wisconsin that are member owners of Great River Energy. So in total, we serve 707 end-use members through our 28 member owners. In 2019, we had $3.9 billion in assets and $990 million in revenue. 4,800 miles of transmission line and 3,000 megawatts of generation. And I'm giving you all these facts right now because later on in this presentation, I'll make a comparison of how GRE and our size and scope fits in along with the other utilities that make up the Mid-Continent Independent System Operator, just to give you a feel for the scope of the power market that we operate in. Like Lake Region Electric Cooperative, GRE is a mission-focused organization with a strong focus on our member owners. We exist for our member owners, and we help our employees remember what it means to be member-focused using our triple bottom line tool, which is simply for our employees to remember it's affordable rates for our member owners, it's reliable power delivery, and it's environmental stewardship. And also, like Lake Region, we established a strategic plan and set forth strategic initiatives whereby we build our work plans and our employee activities around every year. We currently have 4 strategic imperatives: grow the business, keep costs competitive, position the portfolio, and shape our future. And tonight I want to dig deeper along with Charles' introduction, they're deeper into our power supply portfolio and how we've been positioning and evolving that power supply portfolio over time. And over the last 15 years, as you can see from the comparison of these two donut charts showing where the energy that we produce comes from, the pretty distinct contrast on how things have changed from 2005 to 2018. A couple things of note there. In 2005, 80% of the energy we produced for our member owners came from coal-fired resources, and in 2018, 58%. And I'll explain a little bit of what that change was here on the next slide. In addition, a big increase in renewable energy, 2% in 2005 to 25% in 2018. Some of the renewable energy additions were to meet mandates as required under the Minnesota Renewable Energy Standard. And some of the more recent renewable energy additions were because they were just the best economic resource that we could use to provide power supply to our members. Another increase you see on there is in the gray portion of the donuts, moving from 8% reliance on the market for some of our energy needs to 14%. And that's been a conscious decision by GRE as the Midwest market has grown and matured. The Midwest market opened up on April 1st of 2005, and so that as that market has grown and matured and resources have been added to it, we've become more and more comfortable relying on the market for some portion of our load serving obligation to our member owners. A little further to our power supply portfolio evolution, on the right-hand side of the screen you can see the actions that the Great River Energy Board has taken over time to economically right-size our power supply portfolio with a focus on that affordable rates imperative. And so since 2015, we've eliminated 318 megawatts from our power supply portfolio. The first listed there was GRE exiting a long-term power purchase contract we had for half of the output of a coal-fired power plant in Wisconsin. We exited that contract in 2015. In 2017, the board made the very difficult decision to shut down Stanton Station, which was a 188 megawatt coal-fired power plant out in North Dakota, which resulted, unfortunately, in 25 GRE employees losing their jobs. And then more recently, last March, the board made another difficult decision to shut down Elk River Station, which was a refuse-derived fuel burning power plant, or a trash burning power plant. And 85 employees, unfortunately, were laid off from Great River Energy as a result of that decision. But all three of those decisions were with an eye toward affordability and a recognition that those power supply resources were no longer economically competitive in the market environment that we're in. On the other side of the slide, you'll see the energy additions that we added as a result of shutting down those power plants on the right-hand side, and as a result of just meeting need to provide affordable energy to our member owners. All of those are wind projects that have been added to our portfolio. Two of them at the bottom are wind projects that we already had under contract, but were coming to the end of the useful life of their equipment in the contract, and so those wind farms were repowered to continue for 20 more years or so. We're in a good position capacity-wise to be able to take full advantage of our position, the portfolio strategic imperative. And as you can see right now, we are about 600 megawatts long capacity. Right now we're actually about 500 megawatts long capacity because we have forward sold some capacity. But over time, we'll be at that 600 megawatts of more capability to produce energy than our load serving obligation to our member owners. And so the red line there represents our demand curve, or our load serving obligation, and the blue bars represent the capacity that we either own because we have iron in the ground of power plants, or we've procured or purchased under long-term PPAs. And when you add those up, you can see the blue bars are significantly higher than the red line. And that positions us very well to make power supply changes to right-size our portfolio, both from a rates perspective and also just from a resource adequacy perspective. The next evolution in that power supply decision-making was something that we announced on May 7th. And it's what we're calling our strategic power supply plan that has quite a few moving parts to it, as you can see on the screen. The first aspect of that will be retiring Coal Creek Station at the end of 2022. And that is the aspect of this power supply plan that's gut-wrenching, just tear your heart out of your chest situation. because retiring that plan at the end of 2022 will result in GRE having to lay off 266 smart, dedicated, hardworking employees at Coal Creek Station. But unfortunately, the situation has become at Coal Creek Station one such that the economics of continuing to operate that power plant are not good. And we can provide more affordable power supply to our members without Coal Creek in our power supply portfolio. And so as you can see, the plan, as we retire Coal Creek at the end of 2022, is to add new wind resources, very attractively priced wind resources that will be located at and around our existing large combustion turbine power plants of Pleasant Valley Station and Lakeville Junction Station. And we were able to get flat pricing for 30 years for those wind resources. In addition, we'll be out looking in the market for additional 200 megawatts of wind to round out the energy need that we have as a result of shutting down Coal Creek Station. And then the benefit of going into this decision with 600 megawatts of capacity length is that we only need to add 400 megawatts of capacity. That's the ability to make energy to replace Coal Creek Station, because we were already sitting with that capacity length. And our plan to meet that capacity need, that additional 400 megawatts, is to upgrade our existing peaking plants, Lakefield, Pleasant Valley, potentially Cambridge 2, and our Elk River peaking station, and then procure attractively priced market capacity. The major benefit of this decision, and the reason we made this decision, was for economics. Our forecast is that our members, once we execute on this plan, our members will see a 13% reduction in their wholesale power rates. And that's a big deal. Tim gave a great presentation on the work that Lake Region is doing on managing their costs and keeping their rates flat. GRE for the last few years has been able to keep our wholesale power rates flat, but executing on this strategic power supply plan will result in, on average for our member owners, a 13% reduction in their wholesale power rates. Here's what our energy evolution will look like from last year, 2019, into 2025, once Coal Creek is retired and we've executed on these energy and capacity hedges. You'll see we'll be more reliant on the market than we are today, and we're comfortable with that because we keep a close eye on the fundamentals of the wholesale power market. And then the largest majority of the energy that we'll need to serve our member owners will be coming from wind resources. But that only shares part of the story. This is where the energy will be coming from. But as a load-serving entity in the Midwest market and a utility in Minnesota, we have an obligation to meet the load-serving needs of our members all the time, even when the wind isn't blowing, the sun isn't shining, etc. And so those that energy portfolio I showed in the previous slide will be backstopped, the majority, by assets that we own and operate, iron in the ground. So on the right-hand slide, the 2025 donut chart, you can see that 58% of our capacity, that's the ability to make energy, dispatchable resources, will come from currently owned and operated natural gas facilities. In addition, we're planning to add 9% of capacity to those existing facilities through upgrades. We'll continue to rely on the capacity that we get through our hydro allocations from WAPA and also from Manitoba Hydro. And we've also got 4% of our capacity coming from existing fuel oil-fired combustion turbines that we own and operate. So under this plan, we're really only relying on the market purchases for 9% of our capacity and the renewables for 7% of our capacity. So a lot of our energy will be coming from the market renewables, but the majority of our capacity will be coming from resources that we own and operate today, and with some upgrades to some of those resources. And so that starts to take a look at what our near-term capacity strategies and priorities are. We are willing to take some of that capacity need to the market as long as it's cost-effective to do so, and the market allows us to do that. But in the longer term, we're also planning to optimize demand response resources. So demand response resources, especially with the technological changes that we're seeing amongst our members and taking at GRE, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second, will also be a source of capacity and source of reliability for us that we're excited to take advantage of. And in addition, and you might have seen if you saw our press release on the Strategic Power Supply Plan that we announced on May 7th, that we're also undertaking a pilot project to take a look at the opportunity that long-duration battery electric storage may offer us and may offer the market into the future. And so right now we've got a 1 megawatt pilot project that we're hoping will be integrated with the grid in 2023. And when we're talking about long-duration storage, we're talking about a battery storage resource that can provide between 100 and 200 hours of continuous energy to the grid. Right now, when we're talking about battery storage on the grid, it's lithium-ion batteries that can give you 2 to 4 to maybe 6 hours of discharge. But we're looking at opportunities that give us 100 to 200 hours of continuous discharge. I mentioned the MISO market a couple of times. Again, MISO stands for the Mid-Continent Independent System Operator. That's the that's the entity that dispatches generating resources onto the grid. Their geographic footprint is, as you can see there, their map's not real large, but their footprint runs from eastern Montana all the way up to Canada, all the way to the east through Indiana, and the south all the way down to Louisiana, and a little bit of East Texas. And that's the entity that dispatches all of the generating resources within that footprint. They're also primarily responsible for transmission reliability. Now, all the electric utilities in MISO support MISO's transmission reliability efforts at the local level, but MISO has overall responsibility for reliability and making sure there's enough generation in their footprint to meet the load obligation in their footprint. So MISO's job every 4 seconds of every day of the year is to make sure that generation and load are in sync and match up. The utilities' role in this market is to offer all of our generating resources into the market for dispatch at production costs, and to buy all of our load serving needs from the market as well. And that's been the case in the Midwest market since April of 2005. Just to give you a sense of the scope and scale of MISO versus the scope and scale on that first slide I showed you with regard to GRE, MISO has almost $30 billion in gross revenue or market charges. Recall GRE last year was $990 million. They have 468 participating entities serving 42 million people. GRE's member owners in aggregate serve about 770,000 people across Minnesota and a little bit of Wisconsin. MISO's summer peak demand is 127 megawatts, their all-time peak, which was in 2011. GRE's all-time peak is about 2,600 megawatts. And as you can see, in MISO, there's 6,657 generating units. We have 10 generating units and 4,800 miles of transmission versus MISO's almost 72,000 miles of transmission. And so this is the market that we operate in along with other utilities in the upper Midwest. So the question that you might wonder is who's responsible for reliability, and how can I be assured that when GRE undertakes this strategic power supply plan that I've talked about, that the lights are going to continue to be on and that rates are going to continue to be affordable? Well, first and foremost, the electric utilities, including GRE, including all of our member owners, have primary responsibility for making sure that we have the power supply to meet your needs all the time. Now, we also have to demonstrate that not just to our member owners, but to MISO, that we have enough resources to provide adequate power supply to our member owners with an adequate reserve margin for every summer peak. And so MISO requires us through Module E of their tariff, and their tariff is regulated by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC. We have to demonstrate to MISO every year going into the summer season that we have adequate resources to meet our members' need plus a reserve margin. And then MISO undertakes other study activities to make sure that their market will continue to be resource adequate into the future. In addition, Minnesota is an integrated resource planning state, which means that the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission has the purview to regulate all the utilities in Minnesota, co-ops and munis included, as it relates to ensuring that those utilities have adequate resources now and looking out 15 years into the future to meet the load serving obligation that they have to their customers for the IOUs, to our member owners for the co-ops. Just in terms of recapping our strategic power supply portfolio, the things that will stay the same for GRE once Coal Creek is retired and these new wind resources are added, we upgrade our combustion turbines and purchase some capacity, is we're going to continue to have that obligation to provide reliable power to our member owners. We're going to continue to serve our member owners' load through the MISO market, And the majority of the capacity, as I showed you on that 2025 donut chart, will be coming from owned resources, iron in the ground, that we own and operate today. And we'll continue to comply with the MISO resource adequacy rules. We'll continue to file an integrated resource plan with the state of Minnesota to demonstrate that we will be resource adequate for our member owners' needs into the future. Some of the things that change is the type of our resources will become smaller, more diverse, and more renewable. We're going to have a mix of physical resources and market purchases, as long as it's cost effective to purchase from the market. And overall, our costs are going to be lower. I mentioned on average our rates are projected to go down 13% for our member owners. But the other aspect of this is demand response. Remember, I mentioned part of our long-term capacity plan is to optimize demand response. And so the great news in the demand response world, and this is what we used to call load management or load control, we now call it demand response. The great news in that world is that there is some significant technology improvements that are going on, both at GRE and amongst our member owners. At GRE, we're in a multi-year process of replacing our legacy load management system and our legacy load management controller, which is vintage 1980s technology, with an updated system called the demand response management system. And the great thing about that system is it will integrate directly with each of our member owners as our member owners move to advanced metering infrastructure, or AMI. And in the future, we'll be relying on our member owners' telecommunication to get the load management signal out to the in-use devices, to control water heaters, to control air conditioners, to dispatch gensets. That'll be happening via our member owners' AMI telecommunications. This will also allow us to be more automated on how we schedule our load control programs. It'll provide more bandwidth or ability to be more discrete, more surgical, more granular in how loads are shed and restored over time, and provides new functionalities, including the ability to dispatch load management or demand response, as I'm getting used to saying, for reliability, especially local reliability. And it's important to note that Lake Region has been on the vanguard of updating their system, their load management system, and integrating, adopting and then integrating their AMI with GRE's demand response management system. And that has unlocked some early opportunities to take a look at being more granular and surgical with load control, taking a look at opportunities to see, can we control loads by MISO zone rather than doing blanket load control across the state, which is what we're forced to do today with GRE's legacy system. Can we control loads by cooperative? Can we control loads within a cooperative according to substation or feeder or just in kilowatt hour increments? And so this is the Lake Region's early adoption of AMI and the load control that goes along with it, and integrating with our demand response management system has unlocked opportunities to understand what the potential is and to understand how demand response could be a real opportunity to provide additional resource adequacy beyond traditional power supply resources, and also help us with reliability. And we almost had the opportunity to test the ability of load response or demand response to provide reliability relief last summer in Lake Region service territory. So we had a situation last summer in late July and early August, typically times of the year that are quite hot and humid in our neck of the woods, where we had a transformer outage at one of GRE's substations. And so Lake Region was only being fed by one source, and there was a concern that that single source may not be able to carry the full load on that sub during a real hot time. And so GRE staff worked really closely with Lake Region staff, with GRE system operations, to get in place a plan and get a profile, load control profile in our control system, such that if that system started getting overloaded, that we could be discreet with load management to maintain reliability, control some loads on a feathered basis to make sure that we kept the lights on during this transformer outage. At the end of the day, we didn't need to deploy load management for this situation, but it was a great drill both for Great River Energy and for Lake Region to think about how we would do it, to prepare to do it, to get the load scheduled to be curtailed if they needed to, and then to be on standby if something happened and we needed to take advantage of that situation. So my thanks to Dan Husted and Al Fazio and others at Lake Region Co-op for working closely with us to help manage the situation and be ready to control loads if we needed to. So well done in that regard. Finally, I'd just like to wrap up and say, there's a lot of innovative things going on amongst cooperatives. There's a lot of change in our industry, and it seems to be the change just seems to be evolving faster and faster. But it's important to keep in mind that Great River Energy, Lake Region, and the other member owners of Great River Energy stand firmly, on the electric cooperative pillars. We're going to continue to be innovative and work together to make sure that we're providing meaningful, essential service to our member owners. But at the same time, we know we need to keep the lights on. And we're going to undertake all the activities that we need to keep the lights on. And if for some reason the lights go out, be the resilient organizations that our members need us to be to get those lights back on as soon as possible, to provide affordable energy, to make sure that we continue to give all our members a voice in how the co-op's operated, and to focus on that seventh cooperative principle, concern for community, especially in times like these when our communities are in need and our communities are hurting, to make sure that we serve that role as quality of life provider in Greater Minnesota. Thank you very much for your time today, Charles and Tim. I appreciate this opportunity. I hope it was meaningful and shared to the dialogue that you're having with your member owners. And I'm certainly available to take questions however you want to manage that.
Thank you, Mark. Now I'll call on Chad to give us the election results.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The results are District 2, Cecil Bud Hensel with 289 votes. In District 2, Les Christensen with 187 votes. District 5, Patrick Myers with 419 votes. Ron Bratley with 217 votes. As a result of the voting, Mr. Hensel will serve as your director for District 2, and Mr. Myers will serve as your director for District 5. Mr. Chairman, the survey and ballot systems certifies that this is a true and accurate statement of the election results.
Thank you, Chad. Before we draw for prizes and conclude tonight's meeting, we have received several questions. And due to time constraints, we will answer a few of those. We will also provide a Q&A document on our website so all questions can be viewed. Our management team will contact every member who brought a question to get you an answer to your question. The first question is from Tom and Annette Good from Perham. It's kind of a two-part question, and I'll try and answer it that way. It says, I believe that directors should be elected from the entire membership. There are many fine people who can serve with distinction. Why is this not allowed? What can be done to change this? Back in 2006, the membership, or prior to 2006, all directors were elected at large or voted upon by the entire membership. In 2006, a sizable group of our member owners asked our board to consider changing bylaws to allow directors to be elected by the membership in the district they represent. We discussed this at all of our district meetings, and at that time, the bylaw amendment was placed on the ballot and passed by a large majority of the member voters. This concept has worked good for Lake Region. It has also had a considerable cost savings. Instead of sending ballots to over 25,000 members, we send about 2,200 to 2,300 ballots to voters within that district. The question asks, what can be done to change this? To do so, I would suggest if you'd gather support of a large number of members who feel the need for such a bylaw change, then bring this to the board of directors. It would be up to them to decide, based on the numbers, if they want to place this on the ballot for the next election. I would suggest you may want to start by discussing this with your district representative, who very likely, based on your address, very likely is Mike Brazel. I hope this helps in answering your question. Thank you. Jim?
Yes, wanted to share with you, we've had an excellent turnout for tonight's virtual meeting. A total of 451 members have logged on to join us for the virtual meeting. We're very pleased with that. Thank you so much for joining us. I've been reviewing some of the questions here that have been coming in. There's several questions, as Charles said. We will follow up with a Q&A for all the questions on our website, but I wanted to give you a little flavor of the types of questions. For example, one question is, how come the virtual annual meeting does not have closed caption for the hearing impaired cooperative members? We intend to provide a full transcript of the annual meeting to our membership on our website. Another question, how much energy is produced at the wind solar hybrid project, and how does this compare to the amount of energy sold by Lake Region? The wind solar hybrid project produces about 9 million kilowatt hours per year. That's about 2% of our energy needs of our entire system. So it's a very small percentage of our total needs. Another question, did you have to change co-op bylaws to have a virtual meeting and electric voting? We implemented that change in our bylaws a few years ago so we can do the electronic type of meetings and voting. Then there's a few other questions about the closing of Coal Creek Station that I think Mark did a pretty good job of explaining that, but a specific question, I'm wondering what the effect of closing the Great River Energy coal plant will have on Lake Region Electric. I think the biggest impact is an economic impact, and it's a positive impact. As Mark said, there could be up to a 13% lower costs in our wholesale power costs from Great River Energy. We're continuing to analyze that and study that, and hopefully when that project is implemented and completed, Lake Region will see that reduction in the power costs. Another question, what is going to create the base load in your wind and solar projects? The wind solar project is interconnected to our Earhart substation, and when the wind's not blowing and the sun's not shining, the power will certainly come from the central station grid power, like it always has there from Lake Region Electric. So there's a few of the questions I wanted to answer tonight, and again, we will follow up directly with each member who asked a question, as well as have a Q&A on our website.